from on the next page. So I read this. It says, whenever government sets out to manipulate the money supply, which is just what he suggested, regardless of the intelligence or good intentions of those who attempt to direct the process, well, what is the process is the real question there. If I'm to understand what could go awry or what could go right, what is the process? And he didn't give that in the law. So I'm thinking this guy is trying to snow me, here, because, is he proving that a process produces the result, which of course, the only result which imposes no offense against anyone is only an immutable currency, and of course the only possible immutable currency has, at least regardless of what it's made of, it has to exist in a perpetual one-to-one relationship between the remaining value of represented property. And this is, of course, is a thing that these Ron Paul supporters even complain about, but they think that they want, for the few $100s worth of gold at most, which we could have on average, the value of that gold to go up, and then the value of everything is going to change accordingly, which means that there is no benefit. And somehow all that's going to work, no matter how much further industry we restore then, and has to be sustained on this minute little circulation. I mean, all these ideas, they just have no justification, they have no qualification, they have no proof. They're just preposterous, superficial claims, which the person who utters them hasn't done the least diligence, or they would see the faults and go, well, that doesn't stand at all, But anyway, regardless of the intelligence of good intentions of those who attempt to direct the process, the result is inflation, he says. Oh, is that so? You mean to tell me if we only paid principal and retired it from circulation at the rate of consumption or depreciation of the related property, we wouldn't solve inflation? Every process, no matter how good, results in inflation, and yours doesn't, and you haven't shown how? Excuse me. This is like, there's 3 engineers who are decided they're going to make a refinement of a bridge design halfway through construction. And somebody who doesn't know a damn thing about bridges walks up and goes, well, I belong to the Austrian bridge science, and the bridge has to be inverted. It actually has to be inverted, and because what you say is going to hold it up is actually what's holding it down. Therefore, the bridge will work right. And they walk away, and you're supposed to be convinced of it. No, a credible authority doesn't even communicate according to this pattern. They show you how that is. They don't just jump from this mere statement to a claim that it should be a law. This is preposterous. Can these people put these people back in their businesses with this nonsense? Absolutely not. So he says the result is inflation, economic chaos. That's even so generic, we don't even know exactly what that means. And political upheaval. Well, your political upheaval is Ron Paul's collecting hundreds of millions of dollars again, probably, as he did in the last election. And what's going to happen with that? I mean, I watched this G.O.P. debate, and he's claiming that a free market is going to rectify all these things somehow. And he doesn't ever tell you in unequivocal, accountable terms how. Doesn't even approach what is accountable. Not even close. Doesn't even venture a beginning of how that is accountable. Just makes another statement, and they're all just retorts. We cannot live by this. This is why the world is in the mess it is. The very pages of this book embody the mess we have made ourselves in, because this person is not credible. at all. The result is inflation, economic chaos, and political upheaval. It really just bothers me when people ever just put this word inflation out there. Inflation, as I explained in this story where I respond to my economics teacher in high school, he claims that inflation, circulatory inflation, causes price inflation, and that's why they use one word for both. They're equivalent. And right off the top of my head, I prove that's impossible. My teacher agrees that I'm right. And here's this old man 43 years later claiming we have inflation, one word. They're the same thing, still. Is that so, G. Edward Griffin? I don't think you can prove that. But what a sloppy person to use this word like this. By contrast, whenever government is limited in its monetary power to only the maintenance of honest weights and measures of precious metals, the result is price stability, economic prosperity, and political tranquility. Therefore, he gives the law. So he's even testifying that indeed is the very reasons. Okay, well, what is this price stability? We had a gold standard during the first Great Depression. Imagine that. That's price stability. What I did, I downloaded one PDF and I looked at many others, pages and PDFs, about the price of gold and the price of other things relative to gold. And the price of gold was really very, very flat until the middle of the last century, and it's only increased a little bit since then. And in the recent few years, which the PDF I downloaded didn't cover, it's skyrocketed in relation to prices. But prices haven't been stable all this time, and gold hasn't vacillated in relation to the prices. And it's not a matter even of the price of a unit of gold being equivalent to the price of a unit of anything else, because it's the number of units of everything else which gold, the limited quantity of it, has to sustain. So he's not even comparing what has to be compared to get this one-to-one relationship which mathematically perfected economy resolves automatically. So I'm gonna break here a second. I'm gonna line up a couple of other maybe salient points of this book, and make a few notes on them, and then I'd like to get off to this New Hampshire debate and this preposterous idea that Ron Paul's got some kind of plan to save us. I'll say first of all that as Ron Paul was claiming that a free market was somehow just going to rectify all these things. I watched out into the audience, and I'm looking at the souls behind faces, the unblinking eye, the placid expressions, the stoic demeanor of people who had no idea how that was possibly going to come about. Yes, you could probably find 10 or 20% of the people out in the audience that might have held out some hope that, that sounded like something plausible, but that's all these people are trying to do, is sound like something is plausible. There is no accountable explanation at all. These are the most hollow propositions that have ever occurred. And probably I'm sorry, but every country and every land of continent of however many countries succumbing to all this impertinence at the same time, at the brink of inevitable terminal monetary failure. What do I mean by terminal? I mean that the sum of debt is so great that under the system, your creditworthiness is ruined and there's no way for you to recover. You cannot borrow enough money back into circulation to maintain a vital circulation anymore. And since you're obligated to pay virtually everything in circulation immediately out of circulation, game is over. You're done. You have no creditworthiness to recover. They could give it to you again even though their obfuscation of the currency ruined it. But what are we to do then? Start the same cycle of destruction over again as we did at the end of the first Great Depression? If that's all we've got, I'm sorry, I want out of here. Anyway, I'm gonna pick a couple of things in this book if I even find anything that I really want to speak about the way I'm feeling about all this today, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, and we'll get back to this so-called G.O.P. debate, which was no debate, of course, at all. Well, I can't leave this book alone. This is one of the most amazing assemblages of garbage I've honestly ever read in my life. I would want to be crucified if I finished this book, because of the waste of life that it is. But why do we need to know these things? We need to know, who are these guys? What are these Austrian economists up to? Ron Paul is advertised to want an Austrian economist to head his monetary team. Why? This is the kind of thinking that they have. Here's something about just a few pages before, and if you have a copy of this book, I hope you wouldn't dare buy one, but if you already have one, page 141. The title of this section is The Misleading Theory of Quantity. In other words, he's about to invalidate what I said, perhaps. I mean, you would think so. I mean, the title sounds like at least it's going to, run against the grain of what I said. So it says, it often is argued that gold is inappropriate as money because it is too limited in supply to satisfy the needs of modern commerce. Well, I don't remember anybody arguing that until I did. It comes from my work and disproofs of gold, and all these Austrians have plagiarized my work. Even papers such as Interest is Usury, even borrowing the titles or nearly duplicating them, and taking out the parts which disprove the gold standard so that they could somehow draw the conclusion that gold would save us, but never demonstrating how. Which was what my papers are all about, demonstrating how. This is the only thing that can save us, is to understand how all the whatever would work. On the surface, that may sound logical. After all, we do need a lot of money out there to a lot. What is the quantity, buddy? The first sentence, basically proves he's at least replying to my work, that he's reading it most likely, and that he's attempting to invalidate it. It is often argued that gold is inappropriate as money because it is too limited in supply to satisfy the needs of modern commerce. Well, so what he's saying then is, on the contrary, $266 per capita would rightly sustain our commerce, our industry, our production, and our commerce. On the surface, that may sound logical. Well, I would hope so, especially since you're one of the people who's crying out against inflation when there isn't even any inflation. We don't even have circulatory inflation. We have deflation. We have serious deflation, which is and maldisposition, which dedicates what little circulation we have to servicing this perpetually escalated sum of artificial indebtedness. That's our problem in a nutshell. But he says on the surface that